Hey everyone, Christian here, and there was someone who requested a video on Pandanus. So here we have the most common Pandanus. Not sure if I've ever done a video on these, but they are the closest relative there are to palms. Their common name is a screw pine, and this is the most common one in cultivation, at least here in Florida. This is Pandanus utilis. So these are native to Mauritius and I believe the Mascarene Islands. I could be wrong, but I think the most attractive parts of this plant are actually going to be its roots because they're stilted, and you can see they grow healthy ones at least will grow new roots. They're a little bit browner than the more grayish colored older roots, and that's how they kind of cement themselves into the ground. They're excellent for high wind areas because of the way that they root themselves. Obviously this one took a hit from the hurricane and you wouldn't be able to really tell. I mean, eventually at some point they will be, they will take some damage, and some of these leaves that have kind of been blown down to the side are probably around during the hurricane 9 months ago. So these are monocots. Like I said, they're one of the closest relations to palms that there are. Their common name is the screw pine, but they are not a pine. They're just sort of in their own, their own classification. Now this one's not in fruit. I think part of the reason they call them a screw pine is because they put out a cone that looks sort of like a circular pineapple is the best way to put it. And when the fruit is ripe, they will fall apart. They start off green and they'll sort of turn a yellow color, sort of like a pineapple, and it smells like a pineapple as well. It does attract stuff like raccoons and squirrels, and they'll kind of pull apart the cone when it's ready. So these are going to be a zone 10 plant. This is a nice fat one. We're only about 5 blocks from the Gulf of Mexico here in Venice, and this one probably doesn't see much frost at all. I mean, maybe a few times. They can probably they tolerate short temps in the high 20s, and I've seen them north of here. I've seen them in the Tampa area, but I've also seen them die in the Tampa area. So I would say they're slightly more cold hardy than a coconut, but also the branching on these is really cool, how they get this dichotomous branching. But you want to watch out, this one does not have it. So there's like a type that has a red margin on the leaflet. Actually, this does have some red on it, and this does have there's nice spines here. So where my middle finger is here, there's spines that go downward. So if you're running your hand back towards the base, you will cut yourself up pretty badly. Be careful, they're very sharp. There's also spines on the midrib here, you can see that, and do not touch that. Be careful. I could run my hand down like this, but if I were to go the other way, then I would be bleeding. So I don't want to do that. But these are really tough, and I've heard of people actually cutting off. Sorry, I can't use my left hand very much. I pinched a nerve in my shoulder, but you can actually cut off a piece of this and try and reroot it. I don't recommend it. You're better off starting off one from seed or a small plant. And they do love water, but they don't like being grown in like heavy soil. So they like well-draining soil, but lots of water at the roots. They kind of grow in a rocky soil, native rocky soil on those islands of Mauritius and around there in the Indian Ocean. So otherwise, some people will try and trim these up so that they will be easy to walk by, and then they become sort of, like for example, they would cut off the edges here, and I think that takes away from the plant's beauty. I really recommend planting this somewhere, and this is planted pretty well. You can see this is no one walking by is just gonna get their jugular ripped out by the leaflets. You can walk around this entire plant here, and you can see that it will not affect me. But some people also plant them too close to their house, too close to the road. This one's pretty old. This is going to be at least 15-20 years old. It's got a dozen main trunks, and it's quite beautiful. This might actually be a few separate plants. It looks like the stilts are coming off in multiple areas there. It's hard to tell when they get this big, but the big ones will have one massive trunk, and then they'll have like a ton of other ones. But it does look a lot like a clumping version of Dracaena Draco, which is a large tree-like Dracaena from the Canary Islands, and it's absolutely beautiful, but it never really gets this size during anyone's lifetime. So if you want to try and germinate the seeds, if you find a cone that's fallen apart, you want to put them in a pot. You can just lay them on the top of the pot. You don't have to really bury them, maybe a little bit, maybe a third of the way, and make sure it's really, they like real hot, humid conditions to germinate. Make sure the soil is well draining, and give it a little while, give it 6 weeks minimum, and you'll start seeing these things sprout. So they're very cool. Be careful of the spines, they're quite sharp. You can see how the new frond sort of, they call it a screw pine because it kind of looks like a screw. It grows around sort of like a screw, and it just has that really cool symmetrical shape, if you will. And so yeah, it's a beautiful plant. You'll see ones like these are harder to find, but you'll see a lot that are maybe 6 feet tall. This one's pushing 20, I would say, if you go all the way to the top. It's probably not gonna, I don't see them get as tall as, say, the power lines. I mean, they eventually will after decades. So but I really wouldn't worry about that. As long as you have 15 feet of height, I think you'll be all right. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel and want to see more cool videos on tropical plants, feel free to subscribe and hit that bell notification. I do go live sometimes. If you have any questions about Pandanus utilis and where to plant it, that sort of thing, feel free to leave a comment down below, and I'll see everyone in the near future.